1887. Whispering Pines, Dakota Territory. Margaret Sullivan stood on the porch of her ranch house, watching dust rise from the road. And her gut told her the rider coming fast meant trouble she could not afford. She was 28, dark auburn hair, pinned up against the heat, green eyes sharp from years of running this place alone. And she wore a cream blouse and brown split riding skirt, because a woman who managed a high desert ranch outside a settlement of 200 souls did not have time for corsets and nonsense. The rider was close now, a man on a paint horse, and she recognized the Shoshone guide, who sometimes brought cattle buyers through. Her land was not for sale, but men kept asking. She wiped her hands on her skirt and stepped down to meet him. The man dismounted smoothly. He was in his early 30s, long black hair tied back, dark eyes that gave nothing away, wearing a tan buckskin jacket and dark trousers. He moved like someone who did not waste effort.
I am Tobias Sullivan. I was hired to make an offer on your property.
Margaret felt her stomach drop. Sullivan. The name hit her like a fist. 3 weeks ago, a man named Percival Caldwell had arrived in town, dressed like a preacher, carrying a Bible and a smile that did not reach his eyes. He had walked into her place, looked at her, and said, "Mrs. Sullivan, so good to finally meet you." She had opened her mouth to correct him, to say she was Miss Sullivan, never married. But something in his expression stopped her cold. He had leaned close and said, "Your husband will be very pleased to know you are here, waiting." Then he had left. Margaret had spent 3 weeks trying to understand what he meant and why correcting him felt dangerous. Now this man, this guide, had the same last name. She kept her face neutral.
Sullivan is a common name.
It is, but I was told the woman who owns this ranch is Margaret Sullivan, and that she would be expecting a buyer.
I am not selling.
I was hired to make the offer. My employer is Percival Caldwell.
Margaret felt ice slide down her spine. Caldwell, the fake preacher. She forced herself to breathe.
Mr. Caldwell visited 3 weeks ago. He seemed to think I was someone else.
He did not mention that.
He called me Mrs. Sullivan. I am not married.
Tobias studied her, and for the first time his expression shifted. Something cautious, moving behind his eyes.
He told me you were the wife of a man he knew years ago. He said your husband sent him to buy this land.
I have no husband.
Tobias was quiet for a long moment. Then he glanced back at the road.
If you are not who he thinks you are, you need to be careful. Caldwell is not a preacher. He is a businessman. He uses debts and secrets to control people.
Why are you telling me this?
Because if he made a mistake, and you correct him, he will not let you walk away from it.
Margaret felt her hands go cold. She had been right to stay silent.
What does he want with this land?
He did not say. He paid me to deliver the offer and report back.
And will you?
I gave my word. But I do not work for men who hurt women. If you are in danger, I need to know why.
Margaret looked at him, at the steady way he held her gaze, and made a choice.
Come inside. We need to talk.
Inside the ranch house, Margaret poured water from a pitcher and set 2 cups on the table. The room was simple, a kitchen and sitting area, with a ladder leading to a sleeping loft. Tobias stood near the door, his hat in his hands. She sat and gestured for him to do the same.
3 weeks ago, Caldwell walked in here and called me Mrs. Sullivan. He acted like he knew me. He said my husband would be pleased. I started to correct him, but something stopped me. He looked at me like he owned me.
You were smart to stay quiet. Caldwell collects debts like trophies. If he believes you are someone he has leverage over, he will use it.
But I am not that woman.
Then, we need to find out who he thinks you are and why he wants this land.
Why do you care? You said you were hired to buy it.
I was. But I am Shoshone. I know what it looks like when a white man decides he wants something that is not his. I will not help him take your home.
Margaret felt something loosen in her chest. She nodded.
There is a cattle drive coming through in 2 weeks. The herd is due to stop here for water. If Caldwell wants this land, it is because of the water or the trail.
Or because of what is underneath.
There is nothing underneath. This is hard dirt and rock.
Then, it is about the trail. What else is nearby?
The railroad. The line runs 5 miles south. There is a water stop and a supply depot.
That is it. Caldwell is not a rancher. He is a smuggler. If he controls this land, he controls the trail and the access to the rail line.
What is he smuggling?
I do not know yet, but I will find out.
Margaret stood and walked to the window. Outside, the sun was high and merciless. She thought about Caldwell, about the way he had looked at her, and felt anger replace fear.
If he thinks I am someone else, someone connected to his business, he will come back.
He will. And when he does, you need to play along. Do not correct him. Let him believe you are who he thinks you are.
And what do I do when he asks me questions I cannot answer?
You let me handle that. I am going to stay here and help you with the ranch. If Caldwell asks, tell him I am working for you.
He will not believe that.
He will, if we make it convincing.
Margaret turned to look at him.
You would do that. Stay here and lie to him.
I would,
Why?
because you need help. And because I do not like men who use fear to take what they want.
Margaret studied him. This quiet man who had ridden in with an offer to take her land and was now offering to protect it. She nodded.
All right. But if this goes wrong, if Caldwell figures out we are lying, he will come after both of us.
Then we make sure he does not figure it out.
The next morning, Margaret woke before dawn and found Tobias already outside, checking the fence line. She pulled on her boots and joined him. The air was cool, the sky still gray. He looked up as she approached.
You have a weak post on the east side. I can fix it.
I know. I have been meaning to get to it.
I will handle it today. You should stay close to the house. If Caldwell sends someone to watch, we want them to see me working.
You think he is watching already?
I would be.
Margaret nodded and went back inside to start breakfast. She fried salt pork and made coffee. And when Tobias came in, she set a plate in front of him. They ate in silence, and then he went out to work. Margaret spent the morning cleaning and mending, but her mind would not settle. She kept thinking about Caldwell, about the woman he thought she was. That afternoon, she climbed into the loft and pulled out an old trunk. Inside were her mother's things, letters and photographs, and at the bottom, a small wooden box. She opened it and found a silver locket she had not seen in years. Her mother had left it to her, but Margaret had never worn it. She opened the locket and froze. Inside was a photograph, faded and cracked, of a woman who looked exactly like her. The woman wore a dark dress and stood beside a man Margaret did not recognize. On the back of the photograph, in faded ink, were the words Mary Sullivan, 1875. Margaret sat down hard, her heart pounding. Mary Sullivan. Her mother had been a Sullivan before she married, but she had never mentioned a sister or a cousin named Mary. Margaret stared at the photograph, at the woman's face, her own face, and felt the world tilt. She climbed down from the loft and walked outside. Tobias was hammering a new post into place. She held out the locket.
I found this. Look at the photograph.
Tobias took the locket and studied it, then looked at Margaret.
She looks like you.
Exactly like me. The name on the back is Mary Sullivan. I think Caldwell knew her. I think he thinks I am her.
Who is she?
I do not know. My mother was a Sullivan, but she never mentioned anyone named Mary.
If Caldwell knew her, and she is connected to his business, that explains why he wants this land. He thinks you are her, and he thinks you owe him.
But I do not owe him anything.
He does not know that. And if this Mary is dead or missing, he will use you to get what he wants.
Then, we need to find out what happened to her.
We will. But first, we need to know what Caldwell is planning. I am going into town tonight. I will ask around, see what people know about him.
Be careful. If he finds out you are asking questions, he will know we are not what we seem.
I will be careful.
Tobias rode into Whispering Pines after sunset. The town was small, 2 streets lined with wooden buildings, a saloon, a general store, and a church. He tied his horse outside the saloon and walked in. The place was half full, men drinking and playing cards. He ordered whiskey and stood at the bar, listening. After a while, a man beside him, older, with a weathered face, glanced over. You are new.
Passing through. I am working at the Sullivan Ranch.
The man nodded. Margaret Sullivan. Good woman. Keeps to herself.
She does. I heard there was a preacher in town a few weeks back. Caldwell.
The man's expression darkened. He is no preacher. He showed up, started talking about bringing the railroad closer, about buying land. But people who cross him tend to have accidents.
What kind of accidents?
The man lowered his voice. A rancher south of here refused to sell. His barn burned down. Another man asked too many questions about Caldwell's business. He left town in the middle of the night, and no one has seen him since.
What business?
Smuggling. Word is, he runs goods on the train line, uses the depot to move them. No one can prove it, but everyone knows.
And the law?
The sheriff is in Caldwell's pocket.
I see.
The man looked at Tobias. If you are working for Margaret, you should know Caldwell asked about her. He seemed very interested in her property.
Did he say why?
No. But he had a photograph with him. An old one. He was showing it around, asking if anyone recognized the woman in it.
What did she look like?
Like Margaret. Exactly like her. Tobias felt his chest tighten.
Thank you.
He finished his drink and left. Outside, he stood in the dark street, thinking. Caldwell had a photograph of Mary Sullivan. He had been looking for her, or someone who looked like her. And now, he thought he had found her. Tobias mounted his horse and rode back to the ranch. Margaret was waiting on the porch. He dismounted and walked up to her.
Caldwell is a smuggler. He uses the rail line to move goods. And he had a photograph of Mary Sullivan. He was showing it around town, asking if anyone recognized her.
Then, he knows she is real. Or was real.
Or he knows she is connected to something he wants to hide. We need to find out what happened to her.
How?
We start with the photograph. The date on the back is 1875. That was 12 years ago. If she lived here, someone will remember.
I will ask around. But quietly.
Be careful. Caldwell has people watching.
Margaret nodded, but her expression was determined.
I am not afraid of him.
You should be. Men like him do not stop until they get what they want.
Then, we will have to stop him first.
The next morning, Margaret rode into town. She tied her horse outside the general store and went inside. The owner, an older woman named Mrs. Harding, looked up from the counter. Margaret, good to see you.
Good morning. I was hoping you could help me with something.
Mrs. Harding smiled. Of course.
I found an old photograph in my mother's things. It has a name on the back, Mary Sullivan, from 1875. Do you remember anyone by that name?
Mrs. Harding's smile faded. She glanced toward the door, then back at Margaret. Mary Sullivan. Yes, I remember her. She lived here for a while.
What happened to her?
Mrs. Harding lowered her voice. She was married to a man named Thomas Sullivan. He worked for the railroad, but he was involved in something bad. Smuggling, people said. Mary left him and disappeared. No one knows where she went.
When did she leave?
1876. Maybe 1877. It was right after Thomas was caught. He went to prison, and Mary vanished.
Do you know what he was smuggling?
No one ever said. But Percival Caldwell was involved. He was younger then, just starting out. He and Thomas worked together.
And Caldwell never went to prison.
No. He was too smart. He made sure Thomas took the blame. Margaret felt her pulse quicken.
Is Thomas still alive?
I do not know. Last I heard, he was in a territorial prison. But that was years ago.
Thank you.
Mrs. Harding reached out and touched Margaret's arm. Be careful. Caldwell is dangerous. If he thinks you are connected to Mary, he will not leave you alone.
I will be careful.
Margaret left the store and rode back to the ranch. Tobias was working in the corral. She dismounted and walked over to him.
I found out what happened to Mary Sullivan. She was married to a man named Thomas who worked with Caldwell. Thomas went to prison for smuggling. Mary disappeared. Mrs. Harding thinks Caldwell made sure Thomas took the blame.
Then, Caldwell owes Mary something. Or he thinks she knows something that can hurt him.
And he thinks I am her.
Yes. Which means he will come back. And he will ask you questions.
Then, I need to be ready.
We need to find out if Thomas is still alive. If he is, he can tell us what Caldwell is hiding.
How do we find him?
I will send a message to the territorial marshal. If Thomas is in prison, they will know.
Margaret nodded.
And in the meantime?
In the meantime, we prepare. Caldwell will make his move soon.
2 days later, a rider arrived with a message. Tobias read it and handed it to Margaret. Thomas Sullivan was alive, serving a sentence in a prison 3 days' ride south. The marshal had agreed to arrange a meeting. Margaret looked at Tobias.
We need to go.
It is dangerous. If Caldwell finds out, he will know we are investigating him.
We do not have a choice. If Thomas knows what Caldwell is planning, we need to hear it.
Then, we leave tonight.
They rode south through the night, following the trail that led away from Whispering Pines. The moon was bright, the air cool. They spoke little, both focused on the road ahead. By dawn, they had covered 20 miles. They stopped to rest the horses and eat cold biscuits. Margaret sat on a rock and looked at Tobias.
Why did you really agree to help me?
I told you, I do not work for men who hurt women.
There is more to it than that.
My people have been pushed off our land again and again. I know what it feels like to have someone take what is yours because they believe they have the right. I will not help Caldwell do that to you.
Thank you.
You do not need to thank me.
They rode on, and by the second night they reached the prison. It was a grim stone building surrounded by high walls. The marshal met them at the gate. He was a tall man with a hard face. You have 1 hour. Thomas Sullivan is not well. He may not make it through the winter. They followed the marshal inside. Thomas was brought to a small room. He was thin, his hair gray, his hands shaking. He looked at Margaret, and his eyes went wide. Mary.
I am not Mary. My name is Margaret. But I look like her, do I not?
Thomas sank into a chair. You could be her twin.
Mary was my mother's cousin. I found a photograph of her. I need to know what happened. Why does Percival Caldwell think I am her?
Thomas closed his eyes. Caldwell and I smuggled goods on the railroad. Weapons, mostly. We sold them to anyone who would pay. Mary found out. She had proof. Documents, a ledger. She threatened to turn us in. Caldwell told me to handle it. I could not. I loved her. So I took the blame for everything and told her to run. She left, and I went to prison.
Where is the ledger now?
Mary had it. If you look like her, and Caldwell thinks you are her, he believes you have it.
I do not have any ledger.
Then you need to find it. Or make him believe you do not have it. Because he will not stop until he gets it back. That ledger proves he is a smuggler and a murderer.
Murderer. She and the warned Rundant Reckling, once out of Sed, and Boyer Place at the time. The more the wind stas but that the Weir and Lutchcoims. Merlier lives when the lost lobs mark to the win, and stress to the way strime and a teaching then ties. Our finder. I called it tire. The wind finally was pay for a Christ it's walking.
Thomas nodded. A railroad inspector got too close. Caldwell had him killed and made it look like an accident. Mary witnessed it. That is why she ran.
If she witnessed it, why did she not go to the law?
Because Caldwell owns the law. He always has. Margaret felt cold.
Where would she have hidden the ledger?
I do not know. But if she is dead, it could be anywhere. Check her belongings, her home, anywhere she felt safe.
Thank you.
Thomas looked at Margaret. If Caldwell finds out you are not Mary, he will kill you. Be careful. They left the prison and rode back toward Whispering Pines. Margaret was quiet, her mind racing. Tobias rode beside her.
We need to find that ledger.
If it even exists. It has been 12 years. Mary could have destroyed it.
Or she hid it somewhere Caldwell could never find it.
My mother's trunk. I found the locket there. Maybe there is more.
We will search when we get back. But we need to be ready. Caldwell will make his move soon.
They reached the ranch late the next night. Margaret was exhausted, but she climbed into the loft and pulled out the trunk again. She went through every item, every letter, every scrap of paper. At the bottom, tucked into a corner, she found a small leather-bound book. She opened it, and her breath caught. It was a ledger, filled with dates, names, and amounts. Caldwell's name was on nearly every page. She climbed down and handed it to Tobias.
This is it. This is what he wants.
Then we have leverage.
Or we have a target on our backs.
We need to get this to the territorial marshal. If he sees this, he can arrest Caldwell.
And if Caldwell finds out we have it, he will come after us.
He is already coming. We just need to survive long enough to stop him.
The next morning, Margaret woke to the sound of horses. She looked out the window and saw 5 riders coming up the road. Caldwell was in front. She ran downstairs and found Tobias already armed, a rifle in his hands.
He is here.
I know. Stay behind me.
They stepped onto the porch. Caldwell dismounted, his smile cold. He was a tall man, well-dressed, with sharp eyes and a calm voice. Mrs. Sullivan, how lovely to see you again. And you must be the hired hand.
I am.
Caldwell walked closer. I came to discuss the sale of this property. I believe we have unfinished business.
There is no business. I am not selling.
Caldwell's smile did not waver. I think you are. You see, I know who you are, Mary. Or should I say, who you were. And I know you have something that belongs to me.
I do not know what you are talking about.
Caldwell pulled a photograph from his coat and held it up. It was the same photograph from the locket. You look just like her. In fact, you are her. And I want my ledger back.
I am not Mary Sullivan. My name is Margaret. Mary was my mother's cousin.
Caldwell's expression went cold. You are lying.
She is not. Thomas Sullivan is still alive. We spoke to him. He told us everything.
Caldwell's hand moved to his coat, but Tobias raised the rifle.
Do not.
Caldwell stopped, but his eyes were hard. If you spoke to Thomas, then you know I will not leave without that ledger.
I have it. And I am giving it to the territorial marshal.
Caldwell laughed. The marshal will never see it. You are alone out here. No one will hear you if something happens.
We are not alone. I sent a message to the Shoshone camp. They are on their way.
Caldwell's expression flickered. You are bluffing.
Try me.
Caldwell stared at them, then turned to his men. We will be back. And next time, you will not be so lucky. He mounted his horse and rode away. Margaret let out a breath she did not know she was holding.
He will be back.
I know. But we bought time.
How much time?
Enough to get to the marshal. We leave now.
They packed quickly, taking only what they needed. The ledger went into a saddlebag, wrapped in oilcloth. They mounted and rode hard toward the North Trail, the one that led to the territorial capital. Behind them, the ranch grew smaller. Margaret looked back once, then forward. They rode for hours, pushing the horses as hard as they dared. By midday, they reached a canyon pass. The trail narrowed, cliffs rising on either side. Tobias slowed.
This is a good place for an ambush.
Do you think he followed us?
I would have.
They moved cautiously through the pass, watching the ridges. Halfway through, a shot rang out. The bullet struck the rock beside Margaret's head. She ducked, and her horse reared. Tobias grabbed the reins and pulled her forward.
Ride.
They spurred the horses into a gallop. More shots echoed through the canyon. Margaret leaned low, her heart pounding. Ahead, the trail opened into a wider valley. They burst out of the pass and kept riding. Behind them, the shots stopped. Margaret looked back and saw riders at the mouth of the canyon. But they were not following.
Why did they stop?
Because they know where we are going. They will try to cut us off.
Then, we need to move faster.
We will. But the horses need rest.
They stopped at a creek and let the horses drink. Margaret dismounted and sat on the bank, her hands shaking. Tobias sat beside her.
You did well.
I froze. You saved me.
You did not freeze. You kept moving.
Margaret looked at him.
Why are you doing this? You could have left. You could have taken the ledger to the marshal yourself.
I gave you my word. I do not break me word.
It is more than that.
Yes.
He did not say more, but his hand found hers. They sat in silence for a moment. Then they mounted and rode on. By evening, they reached the outskirts of the capital. It was a larger town than Whispering Pines, with a proper courthouse and a marshal's office. They found the marshal at his desk. He was an older man with gray hair and a stern face. Tobias handed him the ledger.
This belongs to Percival Caldwell. It documents his smuggling operation and his plan to rob the train tomorrow.
The marshal flipped through the pages, his expression darkening. The marshal looked up. He does not look like a preacher to me. Where is he now?
Whispering Pines. He will move soon.
The marshal nodded. I will send deputies tonight. If this is accurate, we will have him in custody before dawn.
What about his men?
The marshal studied her. We will handle them. You two should stay here tonight. Safe.
No. We are going back. The people in Whispering Pines need to know what is happening.
The marshal frowned, but did not argue. Suit yourselves. But if Caldwell sees you before we arrive, you are on your own.
We know.
They left the office and found a small boarding house. The landlady gave them 2 rooms, but Margaret stayed in the doorway between them.
I do not want to be alone tonight.
You do not have to be.
She crossed to him, and he wrapped his arms around her. She pressed her face to his chest and felt the steady rhythm of his heartbeat.
I was so afraid in that canyon.
So was I.
You did not show it.
Fear is not weakness. Acting in spite of it is strength.
She looked up at him.
You sound like a teacher.
My grandmother said that. She raised me after my parents died.
Tell me about her.
She was strong. She survived things that would have broken others. She taught me to be honest, to keep my word, to choose a side, and stand.
She would be proud of you.
I hope so.
Margaret touched his face.
I am proud of you.
And I am proud of you. You did not run. You faced him.
I had no choice.
You always have a choice. You chose courage.
She kissed him then, soft and slow. He held her close, his hands in her hair. When they pulled apart, she was smiling.
When this is over, what will you do?
I do not know. I have no land, no work.
You could stay. At the ranch. With me,
As what?
as my husband. If you want,
He stared at her.
You are asking me to marry you.
yes,
Why?
because I love you. Because you are the only man I trust. Because I do not want to do this alone anymore.
I am not easy to live with. I do not talk much. I have no money.
I do not care.
I love you too.
She laughed and kissed him again. They stayed awake talking until the stars faded. Before dawn, they saddled their horses and rode back toward Whispering Pines. The ride back was faster. They knew the deputies were already on the move. When they reached the canyon pass, the sun was rising. This time, no shots came. They rode through and out onto the open trail. By midday, they saw Whispering Pines in the distance. Smoke rose from the chimneys. Everything looked normal. They slowed as they approached the edge of town. Tobias pointed toward the church.
There.
4 horses were tied outside. Margaret recognized them as Caldwell's.
He is still here.
The deputies have not arrived yet.
Then, we wait.
No. If he sees us, he will run. We need to keep him here.
How?
We go in. We talk to him. We stall.
That is insane.
It is the only way.
Margaret looked at the church, then at Tobias.
All right. But if he tries anything, we run.
Agreed.
They rode to the church and dismounted. The door was closed. Tobias pushed it open. Inside, Caldwell stood at the pulpit, his men seated in the pews. He looked up, and his face went cold. Caldwell stepped forward. Miss Sullivan. Mr. Sullivan. I did not expect to see you again.
We came back.
Caldwell smiled, but it did not reach his eyes. How fortunate. I was just discussing with my associates how to handle your disappearance.
We spoke to the marshal.
Caldwell's smile vanished. Caldwell gestured, and his men stood. You made a mistake.
No. You did. The deputies are coming. They have your ledger.
Caldwell's hand moved to his coat. Caldwell pulled out a pistol. Then I have nothing to lose. The door behind them burst open. The marshal and 4 deputies rushed in, guns drawn. The marshal barked an order. Drop it, Caldwell. Caldwell hesitated. His men raised their hands. Slowly, Caldwell set the pistol on the pulpit. The marshal gestured. Take them. The deputies moved forward and cuffed Caldwell and his men. Caldwell stared at Margaret as they led him out. Caldwell spoke quietly. You should have stayed gone.
You should have stayed honest.
The marshal approached Margaret and Tobias. The marshal nodded. You two did good work. The train is safe. The town is safe.
What happens now?
The marshal shrugged. Trial. Prison. He will not see daylight for a long time.
And the ranch.
The marshal looked at Margaret. It is yours. Free and clear. He had no legal claim. Margaret exhaled.
Thank you.
The marshal tipped his hat and left. Margaret and Tobias walked out into the sunlight. The street was filling with people. Word had spread fast. The general store owner called out to Margaret. The store owner grinned. Heard you took down Caldwell. That true?
It is true.
Others gathered around, asking questions, shaking hands. Margaret smiled and answered them, but her eyes kept finding Tobias. After a few minutes, she excused herself and took his hand.
Let us go home.
Home.
Yes. Our home.
They walked to their horses and rode out of town. The ranch appeared on the horizon, the pine trees swaying in the breeze. They dismounted and stood in the yard. Margaret looked at the house, the barn, the corrals.
It needs work.
I can do that.
We can do that.
He smiled.
Yes. We can.
They went inside. The house was quiet. Margaret lit the stove and made coffee. They sat at the table, their hands entwined.
When should we marry?
Soon. Before the cattle drive.
Why before?
Because I want everyone to know you are mine, and I am yours.
She laughed.
You are already mine.
Then, we make it official.
All right. Next week.
Next week.
They spent the rest of the day working. Tobias repaired the corral fence. Margaret cleaned the house. By evening, they were exhausted. They sat on the porch and watched the sun set over the pines. The sky turned orange and pink. A breeze carried the scent of sage.
This is what I wanted.
What?
Peace. Safety. Someone to share it with.
You have it now.
We have it.
He kissed her forehead.
Yes. We do.
The following days passed in a blur. Word spread through whispering pines about the wedding. The townspeople offered help. The general store owner donated fabric for a dress. The blacksmith offered to host the ceremony in his yard. Margaret protested, but they insisted.
You saved this town. Let us celebrate you.
Margaret agreed. She and Tobias rode into town to finalize the plans. The blacksmith's wife measured her for the dress. Tobias spoke with the blacksmith about the ceremony. It would be simple. No preacher, just the justice of the peace. No grand feast, just a gathering of friends. Margaret was relieved. She did not want spectacle. She wanted honesty. The day before the wedding, Tobias rode out to the ridge where his grandmother was buried. He knelt at the grave and spoke quietly.
I am getting married tomorrow. Her name is Margaret. She is brave. She is kind. She loves me. I think you would like her. I wish you could meet her.
He stayed for a while, then rode back. That night, Margaret could not sleep. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. Tomorrow, she would be married. Tomorrow, her life would change. She was not afraid. She was ready. At dawn, she rose and dressed. The blacksmith's wife arrived with the finished dress. It was simple, pale blue with white lace at the collar. Margaret put it on and looked in the mirror. She looked different. happy. The blacksmith's wife smiled. The woman nodded. You look beautiful. He is a lucky man.
I am the lucky one.
They rode into town together. The blacksmith's yard was already full of people. Tables were set with food. Children ran between the adults. Music played from a fiddle. Margaret dismounted and the crowd cheered. She blushed and walked toward the center of the yard. Tobias stood waiting, dressed in a clean shirt and vest. His hair was tied back. He looked nervous. When he saw her, his face softened.
You are beautiful.
You are too.
The justice of the peace stepped forward. He was a short man with a kind smile. He cleared his throat, and the crowd quieted. The justice spoke clearly. We are gathered to join Margaret Sullivan and Tobias Sullivan in marriage. Do you, Margaret, take this man as your husband?
I do.
The justice turned. And do you, Tobias, take this woman as your wife?
I do.
The justice smiled. Then, by the authority vested in me by the Dakota Territory, I pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss. Tobias pulled Margaret close and kissed her. The crowd erupted in cheers and applause. Margaret laughed against his lips. When they pulled apart, she looked into his eyes.
I love you.
I love you too.
The celebration lasted into the evening. They ate and danced and thanked everyone who came. As the sun set, they slipped away from the crowd and walked to the edge of the yard. Tobias took her hand.
Are you happy?
Yes. Are you?
More than I have ever been.
Good. Because this is just the beginning.
I know.
They stood together, watching the last light fade. The stars began to appear. Behind them, the music and laughter continued. Margaret leaned into Tobias, and he wrapped his arm around her.
We should go home.
Yes. Let us go home.
They rode back to the ranch under the stars. The house was dark and quiet. Tobias lit a lantern, and they went inside. Margaret took off her shawl and hung it by the door. She turned and found Tobias watching her.
What are you thinking?
That I am the luckiest man alive.
I think I am the lucky one.
We are both lucky.
He crossed to her and took her hands.
I promise. I will take care of you. I will protect you. I will never leave you.
I know. And I promise the same.
They kissed again, slower this time. The lantern flickered. Outside, the wind stirred the pines. Margaret pulled back and smiled.
Come to bed.
Yes.
They walked to the bedroom. Tobias closed the door behind them. The night was quiet and full of promise. The next morning, Margaret woke to the sound of Tobias moving in the kitchen. She dressed and joined him. He was making coffee and frying eggs.
You cook.
I learned on the trail. It is not fancy.
I do not need fancy.
They ate breakfast together. After they finished, Tobias went out to check the fences. Margaret stayed inside and wrote a letter to her sister in Kansas, telling her about the wedding. She sealed it and set it aside to mail. The days that followed settled into a rhythm. Tobias worked the land. Margaret managed the house. In the evenings, they sat together and talked about their plans. They would expand the ranch, buy more cattle, hire hands for the drive, build a life One afternoon, a rider approached. It was the marshal. He dismounted and tipped his hat. The marshal nodded. Thought you should know. Caldwell was sentenced. 20 years. His associates got 10 each.
Good.
The marshal smiled. You two can rest easy now.
Thank you.
The marshal remounted. Congratulations on the wedding. I heard it was quite the celebration.
It was.
The marshal rode off. Margaret and Tobias stood in the yard.
It is really over.
Yes,
I can hardly believe it.
believe it. We are free.
She took his hand.
Then let us make the most of it.
We will.
They walked back to the house together. The sun was high and warm. The pines swayed in the breeze. Somewhere in the distance, a hawk cried. Margaret looked at Tobias and smiled. This was home. This was family. This was everything she had ever wanted. And it was hers. The cattle drive arrived 2 weeks later. Tobias hired 3 hands, and they spent days preparing. Margaret cooked for the crew and kept the books. The work was hard but satisfying. At night, she and Tobias collapsed into bed, exhausted but happy. The drive went smoothly. The cattle were sold at a good price. Tobias returned with enough money to buy more stock and repair the barn. Margaret was waiting on the porch when he rode in. She ran to him, and he swept her into his arms.
How did it go?
Better than I hoped.
Good. Because I have news.
What news?
I am pregnant.
He froze. Then he laughed and spun her around.
Are you sure?
Yes.
When?
Early spring.
He set her down and kissed her.
This is the best news I have ever heard.
I thought you might say that.
They walked inside. Tobias built a fire, and they sat together on the floor. He rested his hand on her stomach.
I will build a crib, and we will need a bigger house.
We have time.
I want everything to be ready.
It will be. We will do it together.
He kissed her again.
I love you.
I love you too.
The months passed. Winter came and went. Margaret's belly grew. Tobias worked tirelessly, expanding the house and preparing for the baby. In March, the first contractions came. Tobias rode to town and brought back the midwife. The labor was long, but Margaret was strong. Just after dawn, the baby was born. A girl. She had dark hair and green eyes. Margaret held her and wept.
She is perfect.
She is. What should we name her?
Hope.
Hope. I like that.
Tobias kissed Margaret's forehead, then the baby's.
Welcome to the world, Hope Sullivan.
The midwife left. Tobias sat beside Margaret and held them both. Outside, the sun rose over the pines. The ranch was quiet. Inside the house, a new family had begun. That evening, Margaret and Tobias sat on the porch. Hope slept in Margaret's arms. The stars were out. The air smelled of pine and sage.
Do you ever think about how we met?
Every day.
I thought you were going to take my ranch.
I thought you were a con artist.
We were both wrong.
We were both right.
Margaret laughed softly.
What do you mean?
You were pretending to be someone you were not. I was trying to take something that was not mine. We were both running from something.
And now,
Now, we are home.
Margaret looked down at Hope, then at Tobias.
Yes. We are.
The wind stirred the pines. In the distance, a coyote called. The ranch was quiet and safe. Margaret leaned against Tobias, and he wrapped his arm around her. They sat together under the stars, a family, complete. She was mistaken for a criminal, and he came to steal her ranch, Dakota Territory, 1887. Margaret Sullivan is mistaken for someone else and cannot safely correct it. Tobias, a Shoshone guide, arrives to buy her land but discovers a deadly secret, a train heist plot that will destroy the town. When a powerful businessman, posing as a preacher, tries to force her out, Margaret and Tobias must ride to the marshal with evidence that could cost them everything. A story of danger, resilience, and unexpected love on the wild frontier. Subscribe for more thrilling Wild West romance stories. Wild West romance, historical romance, Western love story, cowboy romance, frontier romance, Dakota Territory, 1880s romance, action romance, suspense romance, train heist, mistaken identity, enemies to lovers, Native American hero, strong female lead, ranch romance, Western stories, true love story, happy ending romance. The word was supposed to tree, Watsi for self-times and not to rounder. Like he meant being stressed to meant to wither another, Hugh said. This place where a lost allows white and the tout of then tired. Going that preending and then to shout of that way. I'll let how might have done, all the crying the player or spose the Tory lister. Hey Menther right? Colorized late 1800s American West photograph. Natural light, gentle contrast, slightly soft focus, subtle film grain, faint dust/scratches, slight vignetting, no text, no watermark. A woman in her late 20s with dark auburn hair pulled back, bright green eyes, fair skin, wearing a cream cotton blouse and brown skirt, stands close beside a man in his early 30s with long black hair tied back. Dark brown eyes, strong angular features, tan skin, wearing a tan buckskin jacket and arc trousers. They stand together on a ranch porch, facing forward, their bodies turned slightly toward each other, in a protective, intimate stance. The woman's expression shows determination mixed with fear, eyes wide and urgent. The man holds a rifle across his chest with one hand, while his other arm is positioned protectively near the woman's shoulder. His expression tense and alert, jaw set. Behind them, 5 mounted riders approach in the distance across the ranch yard, silhouetted against the midday sun, with dust rising from their horses' hooves. The setting is a high desert ranch, with weathered wood porch railings in the foreground, the couple in the midground, and in the background the approaching riders. Open corrals with split-rail fences, a weathered barn, and distant pine trees on low hills. Harsh midday sunlight creates strong shadows and a sense of imminent danger. The color palette is warm beige, amber, dusty brown, and muted gold tones. Photorealistic cinematic style. Shot on cinema camera. Natural golden hour lighting. Shallow depth of field with soft bokeh background. Warm beige and amber color grading. Looks like a film still from a premium Western romance movie. Authentic 1800s period photography aesthetic. Professional portrait photog. RafiQuality.L/Thumi word. She reached out and took his hand.
Thank you.
He looked down at their joined hands, then back at her face. Something shifted in his expression.
We should keep moving.
They rode on through the afternoon. The valley opened into rolling grassland. In the distance, Margaret saw smoke rising.
Is that the capital?
No. That is the next settlement. We can get fresh horses there.
They reached the small town just before sunset. It was barely more than a trading post and a handful of buildings. Tobias led them to the stable. An old man came out, squinting at them. The man looked at Tobias and spoke in a language Margaret did not understand. Tobias answered. The old man nodded and gestured to the horses.
He will give us fresh mounts. We ride tonight.
Will we make it before the train arrives?
If we do not stop.
The old man brought out 2 strong horses. Margaret transferred the saddlebags. As she worked, she noticed a rider approaching from the south. The rider was alone, moving fast. Tobias saw him too.
We need to go. Now.
They mounted and rode north. Behind them, the rider entered the town. Margaret did not look back. They rode through the night, the moon lighting the trail. The air grew colder. Margaret pulled her shawl tight. Her body ached, but she did not complain. Beside her, Tobias sat easy in the saddle, his eyes scanning the darkness.
How much farther?
We will reach the capital by dawn.
The hours passed slowly. Margaret fought to stay awake. Once she nearly slipped from the saddle, and Tobias reached out to steady her.
Hold on. We are almost there.
The sky began to lighten in the east. Ahead, Margaret saw buildings rising against the horizon. The territorial capital was larger than Whispering Pines, with wide streets and solid structures. They rode to the marshal's office. Tobias dismounted and helped Margaret down. Her legs shook. He steadied her with a hand on her elbow.
Are you ready?
Yes.
They walked inside. A man sat behind a desk, his badge glinting in the lamplight. He looked up. The marshal was middle-aged with gray hair and tired eyes. The marshal told them to sit. Margaret pulled the ledger from the saddlebag and placed it on the desk.
Percival Caldwell is planning to rob the train that arrives in Whispering Pines tomorrow. This ledger shows his smuggling operation and his blackmail network. He has been posing as a preacher.
The marshal opened the ledger and began reading. His expression hardened. He looked up at Margaret. The marshal asked how she got the ledger.
I took it from his office. He thinks I am someone else. Someone who knew his secrets.
The marshal leaned back. He asked why Caldwell would let her live if she knew so much.
Because she has proof he cannot destroy. A locket with a photograph.
Margaret pulled the locket from inside her blouse and opened it. The marshal studied the photograph. He swore under his breath. The marshal said he knew the woman in the photograph and that she had disappeared 5 years ago.
Caldwell killed her, and he thinks I am her sister.
The marshal closed the ledger. He said he would send deputies to Whispering Pines immediately, and that the train would be protected. He thanked them and told them they had done a brave thing. Margaret felt the weight lift from her shoulders. It was over. They walked out into the early morning light. The street was quiet. Margaret turned to Tobias.
What will you do now?
I will go back to Whispering Pines with you.
Why? The danger is over.
Because I want to.
Margaret smiled.
What about the land?
I do not want your land. I want you.
Margaret's breath caught. She looked up at him.
You barely know me.
I know enough. I know you are brave. I know you do not give up. I know. You make me want to stay.
I want you to stay.
He stepped closer.
I am not good with words. But I will work your ranch. I will protect you. I will stand with you.
That is all I need.
He took her hand.
When this is done, when we go home, I want to marry you.
Yes.
He pulled her close and kissed her. It was slow and certain. When he pulled back, he rested his forehead against hers.
We should go back. Make sure Caldwell is taken.
Together.
Together.
They rode back to Whispering Pines with the marshal and 6 deputies. They arrived in the afternoon. The town was quiet. The marshal sent his men to surround Caldwell's office. Margaret and Tobias waited outside the saloon. A crowd began to gather. The marshal walked to Caldwell's door and knocked. Caldwell opened it, his face smooth and calm. The marshal told him he was under arrest for smuggling, blackmail, and conspiracy to commit robbery. Caldwell smiled. Caldwell said there must be some mistake, and that he was a man of God. The marshal held up the ledger. Caldwell's smile faded. He looked past the marshal and saw Margaret. His eyes went to the locket at her throat. For the first time, he looked afraid. Caldwell lunged for the locket. Tobias stepped forward and blocked him. The deputies moved in. Caldwell struggled, but they held him. He shouted that Margaret was a liar and that she had stolen from him. The marshal told him to be quiet. They dragged Caldwell away. The crowd murmured. Margaret felt Tobias's hand on her shoulder.
It is over.
It is over.
The next morning, the train arrived on schedule. The marshal's men were waiting. No one tried to rob it. Caldwell sat in a cell, his empire crumbling. Margaret stood on the porch of her ranch and watched the sun rise. Tobias came out and stood beside her.
What do we do now?
We work. We build. We live.
When do you want to marry?
Soon. Before the cattle drive.
That gives us 2 weeks.
Is that enough time?
For me, it is.
She leaned against him. He put his arm around her. In the distance, the pines whispered. The land stretched wide and open. Margaret thought of the woman in the locket, the woman who had not survived. She thought of her own narrow escape. She thought of the man beside her, the man who had chosen her side.
Do you ever regret it? Staying,
No.
even though it was dangerous.
Especially because of that. It showed me who you are.
And who am I?
Someone worth fighting for.
Margaret turned and kissed him. The morning was cool and clear. Behind them, the ranch waited. There was work to do, fences to mend, a future to build. But for this moment, they stood together. The world quiet around them.
2 weeks then. At the riverbank,
The town behind us.
and our life ahead.
They walked down the steps together, hand in hand. The ranch stretched before them, the land Margaret had fought to keep, the land Tobias had chosen to defend. In 2 weeks, they would stand at the riverbank and speak their vows. The preacher would be real this time, and the town would watch, but the words would be for them alone. Margaret looked at Tobias and saw her future. Not the future she had planned when she first arrived, Not the future she had feared when Caldwell threatened her, but the future she wanted. A man who kept his word. A home built on truth. A love that had survived fire and deception.
Ready to work.
Always.
They walked toward the barn together as the sun climbed higher. The cattle drive would come. The town would rebuild its trust. The land would demand its price. But they would face it together. Two people who had found each other in the hardest of circumstances and chosen to stay. The pines whispered overhead. The morning air smelled of sage and promise. And in the distance, beyond the ranch, beyond the town, the rails stretched toward a future no longer shadowed by fear. Margaret Sullivan and Tobias Sullivan. The names fit. The life fit. And for the first time since she had stepped off that train, pretending to be someone else, Margaret felt completely, truly